My friends, tonight I'm going to activate your mind to manifest anything. Not some things, not the small manageable things you've already half convinced yourself are possible. Anything. And I don't say this in the loose language of inspiration, the way people reach for large words when they mean something smaller. I say it with the full weight of what I know to be true. The mind you carry right now holds within it infinite, unqualified power to reshape every dimension of your world. Your current circumstances, not permanent, not fixed, not the final verdict on what your life can be. They're fluid, moldable, responsive, entirely subject to the images and assumptions you dare to impress upon your consciousness. Because what is man but imagination itself? What is this creative power but the force that lives and breathes and moves through the very consciousness you're using right now to receive these words? You are not separate from this power. You are this power. And the moment you recognize that, truly recognize it, everything changes. Here's where most people get it completely wrong. You're waiting for something outside you to change, so that you may feel different. Waiting for the account balance to improve before you feel abundant. Waiting for the relationship to appear before you feel loved. Waiting for the diagnosis to change before you feel whole. You are living in reverse. Life is not lived from the outside in. It has never been lived that way, and it never will be. Life is lived from the inside out. Consciousness is the only reality. The world reflects not what you want, not what you deserve, not what you've worked for. It reflects what you are. And what you are is nothing more and nothing less than the sum total of the thoughts you continuously think and the states you habitually occupy. All transformation begins with a shift in consciousness. And the truth that makes this both simple and radical is this: you become what you believe yourself to be. You cannot rise higher than your assumptions. You cannot live more abundantly than your deepest, most habitual inner sense of self. So if you want your outer world to change, you must first change your inner world. Not the other way around. Never the other way around. Let me show you something that will change the way you see your life permanently. Bring to mind the thing you desire most: a home, a fortune, a partner, radiant health, a sense of deep, unshakable purpose. Whatever it is, hold it clearly. Now I'm going to ask you to do something that feels foreign to everything you've been taught about how reality works. I'm not going to ask you to wish for this thing. I'm not going to ask you to pray for it, to hope for it, to set it as a goal on a horizon you're walking toward. I'm going to ask you to claim it, to assume it as your present reality, to treat it not as something approaching, but as something that already is. The assumption, though false to the physical senses in this moment, if persisted in, if genuinely inhabited, night after night, breath after breath, thought after thought, will harden into fact. This is not philosophy. This is not mysticism. This is the operating law of consciousness, as precise and as impersonal as the law of gravity. And here's the key: you must dwell in the end, not visit it occasionally like a tourist, not test it cautiously, 1 foot in and 1 foot ready to retreat. You must move into it the way a person moves into a new home. Unpack your belongings, learn which floorboards creak, which window lets in the morning light. Feel the furniture of your fulfilled desire. Touch its walls in imagination. Breathe its air. Learn its ordinary details until it feels not extraordinary, but simply yours. Here's what changes everything. Feeling is the secret. Feeling is the bridge, the only bridge, between the inner world of assumption and the outer world of manifestation. Thought alone is not enough. You must feel your way into the desired state. Consciousness does not hear your words. It reads your frequency. It detects the actual felt quality of your inner experience and responds to that with the same precision with which a tuning fork responds to its exact pitch and no other. When you say, "I am wealthy," but feel underneath the words the familiar contraction of lack, consciousness ignores the words entirely and responds to the feeling. Always the feeling. This is why you must marry thought to feeling. This is why you must not just think the desired state, but inhabit it until the thought and the feeling are one unified inner reality, indistinguishable from each other, as natural and unremarkable as breathing. So don't just say you're wealthy, feel wealthy. Don't just visualize success, feel successful. Don't just imagine love, feel loved, because the feeling is what creates. I want to say this as plainly as possible. Do not concern yourself with the how. The how is the place where most people spend enormous creative energy that belongs elsewhere. The mechanism of delivery is not your responsibility. The seed does not manage its own germination. It does not concern itself with the specific chemistry of the soil, the precise timing of the rain, the exact temperature required. It simply knows that it must become what it is, and it does. Your only task, your single, complete, sufficient task, is to dwell in the state of the wish fulfilled. Not to engineer the path, not to figure out which sequence of events must occur, not to make yourself available to only certain kinds of delivery while blocking others, to dwell in the end, to inhabit the consciousness of someone for whom the thing is already accomplished, and to trust that the bridge of incidents, the specific, often surprising, always perfect chain of circumstances that consciousness builds between assumption and manifestation, will construct itself precisely without your interference. This is not passivity. This is the most active thing you can do, because the work of consciousness is the only work that actually creates anything. All outer activity is simply the physical expression of an inner state that has already been established. Here's a practice that will accelerate everything. Every night before sleep takes you, revise your day. Do not drift unconsciously toward rest, carrying the unexamined residue of whatever the day brought. Use this threshold, this sacred border between waking and dreaming, deliberately. Use it to impress upon the subconscious mind the image of your fulfilled desire. See it, hear it, touch it in imagination. Let it become so familiar, so textured, so sensory and specific that it begins to feel not miraculous, but simply normal. This is the target feeling, normal, not the electric charge of something hoped for, not the breathless excitement of something almost but not yet received, the quiet, unremarkable normalness of something that is simply and completely yours. Because when it feels normal, it feels real. And when it feels real in consciousness, it must become real in the 3D. This is law, not theory, law. Pay attention to this, because it's costing you everything. The mind is always creating, even in the moments you're not paying attention. Every idle comment, every casual grumble, every reflexive statement of lack is a command issued to the subconscious, which accepts without evaluation, without discrimination, without asking whether you meant it. It simply receives and creates accordingly. This is why you must discipline your inner conversations, not with force, not with the exhausting vigilance of someone trying to catch and correct every stray thought, but with the settled intention of someone who has made a decision. You have decided who you are. You have decided what is true. And from that decision, you speak to yourself privately, consistently in the unguarded moments, as much as the deliberate ones, as one who already possesses what they seek. Because your inner conversations create your outer circumstances, always, without exception. Here's something most people overlook, and it costs them everything. Doubt is also an assumption. Fear is a form of belief. When you entertain these inner states, when you give them your attention, your emotional energy, your quiet, sustained focus, you are not simply worrying, you are manifesting from them. The law is impersonal. It does not evaluate the content of your assumption and reward only the ones it approves of. It simply reflects whatever you occupy, it creates more of. Whatever you dwell in, it expands. This is the terrible power of fear fully understood. And it is also the liberating power of faith fully understood. Because if the law is that precise, that reliable, that completely consistent, then it responds just as precisely to the assumption of abundance as it does to the assumption of lack, to the assumption of love, as to the assumption of loneliness, to the assumption of health, as to the assumption of illness. The law has no preference. It is a mirror, not a judge, and you can choose what stands in front of it. To activate your mind, truly activate it, you must first stop identifying with your past. Your past is not your identity. It is your history. And history, once it has occurred, exists only as memory. You are not your failures. You are not your traumas. You are not the patterns that formed before you understood what was forming them. You are awareness itself. You are the operant power, the living, conscious, creative force that chooses what to assume, what to inhabit, what to make real in the only laboratory that matters, the interior of your own mind. The moment you awaken to this, the moment it becomes not just an idea you find interesting, but a truth you feel in your body, you are free, because if you can assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, the law must build you a bridge to its realization. Not might, must. This is not wishful thinking dressed up in confident language. This is the mechanics of consciousness, as precise and as non-negotiable as mathematics. Let me tell you something profound. Your imagination is the workshop where all reality is built, not a fantasy land, not a place to escape, the actual workshop, the place where all creation begins. Imagination is not separate from reality. It is the very substance of reality. Everything that has ever been built began as a thought, a vision, a feeling of something not yet visible. And what is true of the buildings and the machines and the works of art is true of your circumstances, your relationships, your financial life. Every dimension of your visible world began in imagination. You must see it within before you can see it without. You must know it is done in the dimension where all things are first made real before the physical world reflects it back to you. When the ancient teachers said, "Believe that you have received it, and it shall be yours," they were not speaking in metaphor. They were describing the precise mechanism of creation. Believe you have received it, not that you will receive it someday if you're patient enough, that you have received it. Present tense, done, established in consciousness, which is the only place establishment occurs. Here's the truth that changes everything. The world is yourself pushed out. Every person you encounter, every circumstance that finds you, every coincidence that seems to arrive from nowhere, all of it arises from the patterns of thought you have entertained, accepted, and sustained. Once you understand that your mind is the projector and the world the screen, you stop trying to rearrange the furniture on the screen. You go directly to the film, your thoughts, your assumptions, your inner speech, the sustained emotional atmosphere of your interior life. You change the film, and the scene must change, not might change, must. If you want new relationships, you must first form a new inner self. If you want new financial reality, you must first inhabit the consciousness of wealth. You must see yourself differently, speak to yourself differently, respond to life as the version of yourself who already is what you desire to be. Because if you continue to think from the state of lack, you continue to call lack into being, not as punishment, simply as the faithful, impersonal, mechanical operation of the law. You are creating. The only question is, what? So let me leave you with this. Begin tonight, not after more preparation, not when you feel more ready. Now, close your eyes and feel it real. Whatever you desire, imagine what implies it is already done. Do not force the scene. Allow it to unfold. Make it lovely. Make it ordinary. Make it feel like coming home to something that was always yours. And then dwell there. Return to it. Make it more familiar than your current outer world. And as you do, you will notice something that cannot be explained by coincidence. The outer world begins to shift. People change. Events align. Paths open from directions you weren't watching. You will not be surprised. You will smile, not in disbelief, but in recognition. Because you knew the moment you claimed the state. You are no longer the reactive self, the one who waits to see how the world feels before deciding how to feel. You are the creative self, the one who feels first and watches the world arrange itself accordingly. This is the activated mind. This is your inheritance. It was never withheld from you. It was only awaiting your recognition. Your imagination is the creative power in action. Use it, trust it, live it, and watch with the calm, satisfied recognition of someone who already knew, as the impossible bows to the one truth. Consciousness creates reality, and you are consciousness itself. Activate your mind, feel it real, and watch your world transform.